welcome Dr. Marjorie Dixon. Hello, Marjorie. To talk about something that, might be a little bit controversial for some.
Absolutely.
Apple and Facebook are proposing something very cutting edge, very new for their employees.
Yeah.
Avant-garde. What is it?
So they're proposing for their female employees that they will pay for the covering of one cycle of oocyte cryopreservation, which is egg freezing, but not like chicken eggs. Our eggs. So women's egg freezing, because they want to they want to attract top quality female candidates to their institutions, and they feel that having this as an option for women who are potentially delaying their childbearing for their careers is a plus for them.
Okay, so are they finding there is an issue with finding women that are capable of doing these jobs, or they just know that we are torn?
No, I think that they realize that they're women in the workforce, and women as we get older, if we're not partnered and we haven't started thinking about family, have sometimes a significant financial investment to do for egg freezing, because it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
It can be costly, and it's only recently now that they have lifted the experimental, not ban, but experimental suggestion that this is only for experimental purposes or for specific purposes related to patients, for example, who are going to undergo cancer therapy.
Right.
So if they're doing chemotherapy or radiation, and that has the potential to eventually knock out their ovaries and affect their ability to childbear later, that was one of the options. So it was the experimental indication for it. Now that there are studies that show that it's a safe thing to do, and it's also now more effective to do, because before we could freeze eggs, and we would thaw them, and then we'd fertilize them, but we wouldn't get a lot of babies out of them. So it was a very expensive academic exercise. Okay. Whereas now there's a new way of freezing eggs, which is called vitrification, which is a rapid cooling technique that doesn't damage. So this is where we go into biology. So our eggs have an inner cellular environment that's called the cytoplasm. And in the cytoplasm, there are chromosomes that need to line up. The chromosomes are our genetic information. And when sperm and egg come together, that genetic information has to divide and multiply evenly to grow into an embryo and a baby. And when you freeze an egg and you keep it in that status, and then you thaw it, you want it to continue to grow and to be fertilizable and then to grow into a baby eventually and not have any complications in life or long-term effects from it. So now that we know that it's safe, and now that with vitrification we are actually getting babies that are healthy and pregnancy rates that are good from them, we're now understanding that there can be other indications for it. So it's not just for patients who are wanting to go under cancer therapy, it's women who maybe aren't ready to have a baby, or women who don't have a partner, or women who have mothers who underwent menopause early. So if you know, for example, that your mom went through a premature menopause at age 32, and you're worried and you're 29 and you don't have a partner, or you're finishing your medical training, for example, like someone like me, and you want to have a family that's important to you, you can go see a specialist like me, a fertility specialist, and we at First Steps also have a fertility preservation program where we talk with patients not just about their contraception, but we talk about your conception planning. So do you want to have kids? If you don't, then it doesn't matter. But if you do, and your mom underwent early menopause, then we can actually stimulate you and freeze those eggs. And then use them later. Right?
What a system. And so the company's going to cover this for you?
The company's going to cover this, because it's on average somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 for a cycle to freeze your egg.
How many eggs are we talking about here? Do we know the details of this?
Yeah, so you can freeze. It depends on how you stimulate, but this is not for everyone, and this is an important point. So when we are younger, if we freeze our eggs and then we thaw them later, we can make babies pretty well. When we are older, and that's the problem that I see with it. So when we have patients who come to us, they're 38 and 39, and they're like, okay, in a panic, I don't have a partner and I really want kids and I'm turning 40 next year and I want to freeze my eggs. Well, yes, you can freeze them, but we know that the successes with thawing and fertilizing are much lesser as we get older. So I've said this before, and sometimes people slam me for it, but we haven't managed to change the evolution of the ovary or the physiology of ovarian aging. So much as this is an option, if you're older and finally thinking about having babies, maybe egg freezing is not for you. If you want to think about this and you work at Facebook or Apple early, then you can have the advantage of having that as an option to do when you're 28, 29, 30. Those are the ideal ages to do it, because you're considered advanced maternal age at age 35, right?
Right. So 20, 27, 28, 29.
You have to think about it, because we're thinking about buying a house and where we're going to live and maybe finding a partner, and you know, those are things to consider. But if we're going to empower ourselves as women, I think knowledge is power. And having the education to understand the biology of the ovary and what our family reproductive potential is early on makes us capable of making good decisions and not waiting till when we're 40 when it's too late. We start thinking about it when we're 30 and we can be proactive.
Well, it's interesting because this is probably going to push people into a situation where we are more, we do more thinking about our conception and our reproductive system and what's going to be happening, because so many people in our generation are dealing with the situation and feeling like it's too late, it's not happening.
Exactly, and I get that all the time. Doctor, I wish I had met you 3 years ago or 2 years ago, because I say, you know, I will do the best with what I have now.
Yes.
But it would have been ideal to meet you 5 years ago.
Right.
And even so, you know, I'm doing myself a disservice because this is my life and business and what I do. But if people decided to have their babies younger, maybe there wouldn't be a need for all this to happen.
I know.
But if you're not ready, it's nice to have an option.
Absolutely.
Right?
So the 17-year-olds, instead of online dating, you need to go freeze your egg.
Not quite.
Optimal right now.
Yeah, you
don't
need to
tweet me about it. It was a joke.
It was
okay?
a joke. Date a person, find people, go out and meet people. We need to get away from electronics and touch people sometimes.
It would be nice to freeze some eggs too.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Nice. Okay, let's go to break. More coming up.
I think that's